Everybody, I want to talk a little bit about the Taylor GS Mini and some of my thoughts. They have a couple different Taylor GS Minis. It can get a little confusing. I found it, so I hope you'll consider watching. Well, you know what piqued my interest in this subject? My wife has this beautiful Taylor GS Mini Koa, and I did a video of that last summer. It's just an excellent guitar. Excellent guitar. I think one of the best guitars in history. I mean, actually, really, it's especially for just like a relatively speaking affordable guitar. It's just an excellent guitar. This is a Taylor GS Mini Plus in Koa. So I've learned a little bit more now. I picked up this regular Taylor GS Mini a couple months ago. Because I wanted a GS Mini. My wife says I was jealous of her, but maybe a little bit. But I wanted a GS Mini, so I picked this one up. But it does have some differences. This is the GS Mini Plus. They sell for about $1,200, I think. This is a regular GS Mini. It sells for considerably less. It's still over $500, but I got this one used for, I think, right around $500. So I don't not consider this an expensive guitar for the quality. But you know, Taylor has a deal right now. You'd kind of be a fool to sort of not at least consider it if you're looking at a guitar for Christmas or whatever, because their deal is you can if you buy one of their qualifying guitars, which I think start as low as like $500 for some of those. Is it the Academy? Some of those student guitars. You can buy a GS Mini, a regular GS Mini for $99. So you could get a guitar like this, I think, for $99. That is an absolute ridiculous deal. And you can get a GS Mini Koa for $199. This Koa is kind of fancy wood. But it kind of piqued my interest. I was actually looking at that myself, thinking, gee, wow, you can get two guitars for really nice guitars for well under $1,000 if you kind of look through their offerings. But I also was looking at it a little more carefully, and I just kind of wanted to say a few things about it. Now, one thing is, one of the qualifying guitars is not... One of the guitars you can buy for $99 or $199 is not the GS Mini Plus. And this is a GS Mini Koa Plus. And the Pluses are kind of the premium GS Mini. And these are kind of more, they don't have quite as many good features, these regular GS Minis. And I didn't really understand that too much, because I think it's like a lot of things. I think this was kind of the original GS Mini, and it just was one of the best guitar releases probably in recent decades, literally. And I think it was so successful, they kind of lowered the price, maybe changed a few of the specs, and started selling them even more affordably. And that's what this is. And this is still a good guitar. However, there are some differences, and I just wanted to say, if you decide to get this guitar, I think you could get one like this for $99 if you buy an Academy for $500. That's just a ridiculous deal. If you have a young person or just someone that wants to play, you could not go wrong with that deal. So definitely consider it. However, I did want to say a little bit about the Plus, because one thing I noticed is you can't get the GS Mini Plus. It's not part of that deal at all. So for $99 you can get a regular GS Mini, and then for $199 you can get a GS Mini Koa. But you can't get the GS Mini Plus. That's not one of the guitars listed for that, $99 or $199. And I wanted to say a little bit about that, because the GS Mini Plus, to me, has some things that I think are important to have if you're a really serious guitar player. Like I said, this is not a bad guitar at all. It's not a bad deal in any way, shape, or form. But I think if depending on how serious you go, or if you have just money's not that much of an object. We're all jealous of you if that's the case, but if you're not that worried about the money, you might want to consider the GS Mini Plus. First of all, the Koa doesn't matter to me much, although you will pay a premium for a Koa. Now, they have a GS Mini Plus in Rosewood. That's Rosewood. And, you know, I think Koa is kind of a newer wood. I don't remember hearing much about it. I don't think till we bought this for my wife. It's a wood that grows in Hawaii. And when I was a kid, I didn't hear much about Koa guitars. But Rosewood's been around for a long time. And I think those GS Minis, the Koa kind of gets a lot of the cachet, but they have a GS Mini Plus in Rosewood. And I happen to think Rosewood, in terms of the aesthetics, is the most beautiful tone wood. I've always loved Rosewood. So just because it's Koa, to me, that's not a big deal. I don't know if Koa sounds a little better than Rosewood. I frankly doubt it, because Rosewood's a great tone wood. But, you know, some of those, it gets so nuanced when you try to examine what sounds good and what doesn't. It gets a little ridiculous. So I'm not that worried about the Koa, but you will pay a premium for it if it's Koa. But there are a couple other things with the Plus that you don't get in any of those other GS Minis. Now, the Plus has the Expression System 2 in it, and the other ones have different pickup systems. I don't know, they have a couple, and that also gets a little confusing. But this, I think, might be the ESB. Now, I like this. One of the reasons I bought it is because it has a tuner. And I used to think that was kind of lame, but actually, if you're going to have plastic up there, which is always a negative, I wouldn't put that plastic on like a nice Martin HD28 or something like that. But if you're going to have something up there, which has a lot of practical advantages, it's nice to have a tuner. The one thing I don't, and I'm not that worried, I think the Expression System 2, which is on this, is that's Taylor's premium pickup system. And, you know, everybody's got an opinion on those pickup systems, but I had a 314 CE for quite a few years that I played a lot in a duo that I was in about 5 years ago, and I never had any complaints. You know why? Because when I plugged it in, it worked. And it sounded pretty good, you know. And somebody, oh, the LR bags, you got to take that Expression System 2 out of there and put in LR bags or a Fishman, or was it a Sunrise, Sunburst? What is it? There are a bunch of them. But you know what? The Expression System 2 is an excellent system. It works just fine, you know. But the one thing is I didn't like about this is it's got one of those kind of watch batteries. I forget, CS something or another. And they've gotten a lot better, but I've never liked those types of watch batteries. And the Expression System 2 has a traditional 9-volt battery. And I don't know about you, I think they've become a little more readily available, but I do not like those watch batteries. I always try to avoid them if I can. I think, like I said, I think it's easier to get them and change. I used to have some tuners in the old days before headstock tuners were really common. Some of the first headstock tuners had those watch batteries. And also a lot of the pickups used to have those watch batteries, and they'd tell you it's good for a year. But of course, that depends on how long you play it. And I with these 9 volts, when I had my 314 CE, I would change that battery pretty much before every, halfway serious performance. I mean, if I was playing a little for some, some civic group for 15 minutes or something with senior ladies, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if I was playing, something where I had to play for a couple hours, I just changed it all the time. And the 9 volts a lot easier. I think these kind of watch batteries this thing requires are getting easier to find, and they're easier to change. I used to take some of those old watch battery type anything I had into a jeweler and have them change it, and that is ridiculous just to change a battery. So I thank goodness I think the newer ones are a lot easier to change. But I just get nervous. I like a 9 volt. I know I can walk into any convenience store, any gas station, any drugstore, anywhere, and buy a 9-volt. And that's one big difference. I'm not that worried too much about the sound quality. Oh, the mids are a little off. I think I need the fainting couch, but I do like that 9-volt battery. So you might want to check. Now I do think I don't know, maybe one of those GS Minis you can have a 9-volt battery. I'm not too worried about the quality of the sound, because usually those pickups sound pretty good, and none of them sound as good as just playing into a microphone acoustically. The other small thing I wanted to mention about the differences between these two GS Minis is the tuners. The GS Mini Plus, this is a Koa, has a tuning ratio of 18:1, and this has a tuning ratio of 14:1. Now, a tuning ratio, that's how many times you have to turn the gear to have this post go around one full time. Like if the post was at 12 o'clock and you turn, how many turns does it take to get it back to 12 o'clock? And 18:1, 18 turns for one full rotation is considered a pretty good rotation. This one has a 14:1 ratio. I researched it. I even called Taylor. Now, some of the really fancy guitars can have like 21, but if you have an 18:1 ratio, that's considered an excellent tuner. And if you think about it, when you tune, you know, if a higher tuning ratio, those are finer, more precise turns. So now this guitar I got out here, this is an old Harmony from the early 70s. I call it my screen door wire finger bleeder. Look at that. It's just like one I learned on. I bet the tuning ratio on these old honkers, 2:1, I don't know. Let's just say it's not very precise. You really got to wang it to get this, you know. You've got to turn. And when you have a higher tuning ratio, it's much more sensitive. So little turns make a big difference. And when you're really trying to play in good tune, that high tuning ratio is really important. And this GS Mini Plus will have your 18.1 tuning ratios. That is not available on any of the GS Mini guitars that are available for that, like buy one, get one at a really good deep discount offering that they have. I think it runs till New Year's. So those tuning ratios are important to me, and I've decided that it makes a big enough difference to me that I'll probably, in the near future, trade this in for a GS Mini Plus. By the way, if you want a Taylor guitar with the 18.1 ratio I called, and you're going like 114, the Taylor 114 line, that's still 14:1. Now that's a good tuning ratio. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want the 18:1, it starts at the 214 level. And I think some of the like $8,000 Taylors might have 21:1, but 18.1 is an excellent tuner. That's usually a really good guitar. And this one does stay in better tune. I've noticed it. This one slips a little bit, and it's harder to get in really good tune because when you tune, you know, you just have that little bit more of a give, a little bit more slack in those tuners with that lower tuning ratio. And this one does tune up better and stay in tune better. And so at some point, I'll probably replace this with a Taylor GS Mini Plus. And you know what? I don't know if I care about the Koa. I'll probably get a Taylor GS Mini Plus Rosewood, just because I happen to like Rosewood. I think Koa is beautiful. But the Koa to me is not a factor. The 18.1 tuning ratio is, and I'm not all that worried about the you know, cork sniffing quality of the sound, because usually those pickups sound all right. None of them sound all that great, really. But I am worried about, I want a 9-volt battery. I play a fair amount, at least I did before the pandemic. Maybe I'll never play again. But before the pandemic, I used to play a couple times a week. And I want that 9-volt battery. I want to be able to walk into the drugstore when I fill up my gas on the way to the gig and buy a 9-volt battery. I don't have to worry. Are they going to have the CSXA123 battery, or are they out of that and they have the CSX12Z, you know, and all that those alphabet soup watch batteries? I don't want any of those. So those are two things that would steer me at least in the direction of the GS Mini Plus. And they're important enough to me that I would make a decision just based on those two things alone. The Koa doesn't matter. That said, you can't go wrong with this. This is an excellent guitar. And if you have a young person, you know, they might not be plugging in all that much anyway. So, and it's got a tuner. So I'm not trying to discourage anyone from buying this, but those are two things that I think I thought about when I looked at that deal. Because when I looked at that deal, I thought, man alive, you can get a, you know, for $500, get one of those Taylor Academies, and for another $100, get a GS Mini. But then I started looking at it a little closer, and it's one of these kinds of GS Minis, and you don't get the 18.1 tuners, and you also have to, I think, they might have a couple others. So none of them have the expression system too, but some of those Taylor GS Minis that are more standard issue might have at least 9-volt, and that to me is important. But I would still wait to find a GS Mini with both a 9-volt, which the expression system 2 is a 9-volt battery swap, and 18.1 tuners. Because, you know, if you're really trying to be in tune, that is something that will make a tangible difference in the performance of the guitar. I just kind of want to share that. I think it went on a little too long, but there you go. God bless you. And if you're shopping for a guitar for the holidays, though, maybe for yourself, or for a loved one, that deal, you can't go wrong. I am not trying to discourage anyone from that deal. Those are just things I'm thinking about. In fact, buy yourself a 214, which does have the 18.1 tuners, which does have the expression system too. They're about $1,500, I think. And then you get yourself one of these GS Minis for $99 and give it to somebody. And let me tell you, this is one of the best. This would be a great, this isn't a student guitar, but I do think you're losing the 18.1 tuners, and you've got to have that battery. But if you gave this to a young person, they can tune with it, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you play a lot, I find the convenience of a 9-volt, even with the more readily available supply of those little jeweler's watch type batteries. I don't like them, and I'm always going to err on the side of a guitar that can swap easily with the 9-volt, because batteries stink anyway. So if they're a necessary evil, and you're going to have one in there, you might as well get one that has a good expression, you know, good pickup system, and swaps out with the easy to change 9-volt. Not anything where you need to find the battery and then have sort of a unusual approach. This, I think, is how the battery changes. And there's not a battery indicator light on it. That was another thing I used to hate. I remember when I was in the Silverbird Duo, I'm going to say this, I loved a guy. He was one of my best friends, Bob, and we were really good, but he wasn't always too attentive to things. I used to get on him. I'm not either, but I was more attentive about like changing batteries. And one time he had that battery in that old Fishman. He had like a Fishman on that Martin D235 he had, which sounded great. But as we played, it started to sound worse. And those things don't go out on you all at once. You know, they'll just keep getting, the performance keeps getting worse and worse. That's why I change them all the time, the batteries. Because as the battery drains, you know, the performance of the pickup gets worse and worse. If you think about it, that's a real issue. So you really at least want a battery indicator light. So, but I said, Bob, do you want, I'm going to go to the jeweler. And he had one of those watch type, you know, you had to like, he could do it, but like I would have taken it to a jeweler, which is ridiculous to take your guitar into a jeweler, just to have them put in a, you know, battery. It was embarrassing, but I would do it. But I said, Bob, do you want me to get you a new battery? I'm going to the store before we play Friday night. No, 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 I'm fine. Well, we got there Friday night, and he started playing. It was because when those batteries go out, they sound absolutely horrific and just all kinds of distortion, and it's not the good kind of distortion you pay extra for. It was that horrible digital distortion of a pickup system that doesn't have the battery juice left. So that is the two caveats I would have about that deal. And since I'm kind of a fan of the GS Mini, I was always a Martin guy, to be honest with you. And maybe I'll do a little video on Taylor versus Martin. Martins are the great American guitar, right along with Fender. But I'll tell you what, I'll tell you what, Taylor, they kind of, what did they come out in the 80s? I don't know what year they were founded, but they've really made a name for themselves by making high quality guitars. And I came around. Taylors are excellent guitars. You can't go wrong. But if you got a couple $100 extra bucks, and you really want to play in better tune all the time, get yourself a Plus with the 18.1 tuners and a 9-volt battery swap, so you don't have to worry about those little watch batteries. Thanks. God bless.